originally from some years ago when he brought a guy called Manfred Bleffert, who's a composer and musician and instrument maker, over to Sheffield. And we had a course where we were making a xylophone, and this entailed bashing iron, which was an interesting experience. There's some people who actually managed to get this wonderful octave, and Andrew being one of them. Mine was an interesting set of notes at the end of the but yes, so Andrew is, my knowledge of Andrew is going in these two ways. One is as a teacher, and that's a special kind of school. It's one of his Ruskin Mill schools, where a college for people with learning differences to help them to find themselves and to develop a skill. But he's also at the forefront of investigating what music is and where it's going. And I think he's going to help us experience something of that now. So, welcome, Andrew.
My presentation actually really amounts to telling you about the researches of actually one man or two men, particularly. It's very unoriginal. And it's all in this book here. It's called Expanding Tonal Awareness, and it's this one here, Haile Mulan. Another one he died a couple of years ago at the age of 80, and a colleague of his, a slightly earlier generation, Herman Frohman, his stuff is not translated, unfortunately. So that's what it amounts to. But we need to start by just establishing a couple of sort of basic principles before we can sort of really get going. And the first is the octave. So what is an octave? So if I play these two notes, we can hear that they've got something to do with each other, can't we? And if I go slightly, a bit higher, it's clear that they're different. If I go a little bit lower, also it's clear that they're different. So they're two different notes, but they've got something to do with each other. That's the octave. It's a bit like, my lower self and my higher self. It's something repeated at a high level. That's the octave. That's what I'd like you to remember about the octave. The next thing is the overtone series, and can everyone see the boards? It's really important. Come closer if you can't. And later on, I'm going to ask you to sing. You need to be closer for that. So, the overtone series is this one here. So this little vertical. So the thing is that if you take any material of the earth, anything that is capable of producing a musical tone, and you fashion it in such a way that it does produce a musical tone, for example, this tubular bell, which I made myself, so I can speak from some experience. So if you take a piece of copper and roll it into a tube, I didn't do that bit, and then you hammer it in hot and cold and various different things, you'll get, it produces the beautiful musical tone, which is, as you can hear, has got a lot of tones, more than one tone in there, got quite a few tones in there. If we had more time, we'd sort of listen to them all and hear that. But the point is, for our purposes, any material that you take anywhere in the world, any material that can be capable of being fashioned into to make a musical sound, it gives off the same series, relatively speaking, the same series of notes, always. That's the octave and the overtone series are the two universals in music. And that series of notes is this. It goes through, the white ones are octaves, and the yellow ones are the actual notes. So I just play this series to start. So it's... So those notes are given off, as I say, by any material. You might start on a different note, but the relative series is the same. So maybe next time, I'll do it one more time, you can follow it. In the first octave, it's just the octave, the fundamental note of any octave. In the second octave, there's one in the middle. In the third octave, there's a few more less spaced out, and in the top one, it's actually a scale. See if you can, while I'm playing it, just follow it along that diagram. There's the first octave, second octave, third octave, fourth. The overtone series. So that's the second thing we need to remember, actually, but it wasn't, because they're slightly different from that. Because we can't do it on the piano because they're slightly in between. And that's the really important thing that we come to. So, having established those two first things, we can get down to the business. And first of all, I want to listen to an interval, two notes, which is called the pure seventh. I'll become clear why it's that shortly. So here it is, 7 notes. Listen really carefully. I want to kind of investigate the quality of that interval. And a really good way of doing it is by comparing it to the seventh that we've got here, which is this is not one in our scale, but it's the one in the overtone series. This is the seventh. In the overtone series, so you could say in nature, that's the nature seventh. What we've got here is this. Now, can you hear the difference? It's significantly different. And one of the main differences is this one is actually very unstable. It wants to go, if you think about it, it wants to, or feel about it, it wants to go to there, or to there. And if I put our traditional harmony underneath it, then it becomes even more clear. That's, the most standard harmonic progression. And that's how we usually hear that interval. So, can you hear it? Once you get there, isn't it? Well, try this one. Is it the same? Try it. And what I'd like you to hear, and we can't workshop this, is that there's a kind of boundless quality to this. It's sort of infinitudinous. It just goes on and on and on. It just sits there. It's not really trying to go anywhere like this one. That's a natural, the pure seventh. Now, I'm going to explain now the principle of creating a scale by the cyclical method, which is well known, but not with this interval. And this is this diagram here. So, if you pile that pure seventh, one on top of the other, so one pure seventh, the next, and the next, and the next, 1, 2. Oh, I haven't done enough. That's dreadful. That's terrible. There should be one more. I've got short. Just imagine. Imagine one more down here. Yes, and another line. After five of these, you come back to the same note. Yeah. So we pile them up, and on the sixth or 4 after 5, you come back to the note that you started with. And if you then compress them into an octave, within the space of one octave, you get a scale. And that's how our cycle is sometimes called a fifths. That's what's on the piano, 12 fifths. It's 12 fifths piled up on top of each other and compressed into an octave. I mean, I don't mean that it happened like that, someone worked it out, but you can explain it mathematically like that. And you can do the same with this seventh, and you get, but there's only 5 of them. And this scale here is called slendro. It just happens to be the scale of the Indonesian gamelan. It sounds like this. Because it's constructed in this way, it's actually shot through with sevenths. It's an expression of the seventh. That whole scale is just the expression of one interval, because it's all numerically and mathematically is clear that it must be. It's constructed in that way, just like our scale is an expression of the fifth. Now, this man, Rudolf, he discovered that. He's the only, nobody knows this. This is absolutely unknown research, the fact that you could get a cycle out of the sevenths, and that music is still existing in the world, is radically new, and it leads to very important conclusions, which we'll come to at the end. And now I'm going to play, we're going to listen to a recording of that music, gamelan music. Yes.
Could you play the 5/7 on the piano?
Yes, but I can't, because they're not pure. But the nearest you can get is. Back to the old. So we're going to listen to a recording now of that music, and this gamelan music is a very well-known genre of music, and it is precisely, the intervals are exactly right. It's exactly pure seventh. And in the first excerpt, I'd like you to really, it's the gamelan, which is lots of metal gongs, sort of placed mostly horizontal on that. They're going quite slowly at first, so that you can really follow these strange intonations in your ear. So I'd like you to follow, really try and hear each tone inwardly, and then afterwards see how you feel. On the islands of Bali and Indonesia. And the next piece, the next excerpt I'll play is when all of those instruments they're all in together, and it's a bit like a Chagall painting. It's rather chaotic. There's all these different things happening, but apparently bearing very little relation to each other. So I want you to hear that. First of all, the string instrument comes in, and then the metal and the drums come in, and then the flute, and then the voice. So I want you to experience that kind of chaotic element. And also, if you can also, do you experience that sort of sense of infinitude, that perhaps you experienced in the interval, that kind of boundlessness at the beginning? I've got to change. Oh, it is. I've got to make a change. Sorry. Right, let's try this. That's the string. That music goes all through the night. I want to now cut to this diagram here. Now, Rudolf Steiner said something very interesting, which was which nobody can understand for quite a long time. You know how he divided up the time, the history after Atlantis, into what he called post-Atlantean epochs. And he said the music of the first post-Atlantean epoch is governed by the principle of seven. The music of the second post-Atlantean epoch is governed by the number 6, and so on. The third by the 5th, and the fourth by the 4th, and the 5th by the 3rd. And I put the dates down here and something about those the times that we're talking about. And this here is the interval on the monochord. This is the monochord of Pythagoras, which you can make all these intervals with. It's also got a scale which Pythagoras didn't have, and you can make all the main musics of the world by measuring off the intervals. It's a rather useful piece of kit. And these are the ratios of this interval, and that one's simplified. So anyway, no one could understand what did he mean by this until Heiner Riemann and Hermann Froegner, they cracked it. And that's what I'm going to tell you. What did he mean by that? What does it mean? And in terms of this first epoch, it means that the quality of the seventh is a kind of boundlessness, but the pure seventh. And actually, I hope you could hear that in that music. And that gamelan music, Rulon says, is a living kind of museum piece from this time. And he's examined, all the musicological evidence, the ethnomusicology, and he's come to the conclusion, not only that, but the whole of that music of that time was under the aegis of this number 7 and governed by the principle of the seventh. It's amazing. That is utterly unique research. So, going on now to the next one. Well, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So, the next interval, if we can listen to this. This is a pure sixth. compare it to R6, two of them actually. First, my body lies over the ocean. Can we just sing that? My body lies over the ocean, especially the first bit. My body, it's a kind of joyful outpouring, isn't it? It's a major sixth, and the minor sixth. Love story. Elements of both of these two. But it's sort of bittersweet quality. You can actually hear both that sort of joyous aspect. Actually, just when I forgot something, the joyous aspect and the inward aspect. It goes both ways. That's the mercurial element in sixth. You can hear it. It's actually in the interval. Try and hear that major sixth, which we we used to. My ba. Try and hear that in this. Kind of in there, and then da dim ba di da, and the minor one. They're actually both magically present in there. It's an amazing thing. And if you and you can do the same thing. If you pile them up like this on this ladder, and then press them into one octave, then it comes back to the same note after 10 this time, and then you've got a scale. Except you don't use all the 10 notes like you did in the other one. You can pick and choose, so you've got modes. But they all have the same character of the sixth, and here's one of them, which I hope you can hear the Middle East coming towards you in this, as we heard this morning, actually, yeah, from Julia. A scale which is shot through with sixthness, which it's this mercurial, this kind of joy and sorrow, sort of mixed up in one. But some commentators I don't know if can you feel there's a golden quality in that? I just felt, I actually began to hear that last week, but I can't say that that's been a typical experience for me. But I would like to read you an amazing quote from that man, Rouland. He says of that interval, this is the red gleam of heavy gold, more objective and raised above the human, and more super-earthly than the major sixth's bright jubilation and the minor sixth's dark glow. That's a piece of really, fantastic Goethean phenomenological research on the part of Rührlein. He also says, the dazzling cascading glow of the major sixth receives from the side of the minor sixth a weight, a reddening, a depth, an inner glow. So it's got that golden quality. And of course, it's made on the monocle by the ratio of gold and mean. So let's hear some music based exactly on that, or recording based exactly on that mode we just heard. So this is actually some Iranian music. And what I would like you to hear, it's so clear, there's sadness, there's tremendous playfulness you'll hear, but a kind of real melancholy as well. So that's what I'd like to hear, those two qualities. So I'm all in one. Just sort of contemplate that. So this should work. with this sixth. So, what did Steiner said about the second what he called the second post-Atlantic epoch? He said what characterised it is, well, perhaps I better just go back actually. For the first, what he said about the first is that the whole culture was characterised by a longingness to return to the clairvoyant state that they had on Atlantis. So it was not looking down towards the earth at all, although they were on the earth, but towards something that they had lost. That's how he characterises it. And I think the seventh, that's what the seventh brings. And I hoped, I meant to say this at that point, but I hoped you could feel some of that. Of course, the music's changed a lot since then, but in this example, which we still have coming through the millennia, it's still something of that quality of sort of timelessness and boundlessness, and actually otherworldly. It was not of this world, was it, that music? And then he said of this epoch, he says that humankind, on the one hand, really began to feel the loss of clairvoyance. It really sort of kicked in at this point, and Lucifer, you got the incarnations of Lucifer and Ahriman, which skewed any remaining clairvoyance which was there. And at the same time, agriculture began, and they really began to feel like citizens of the earth. So there was this sort of dual thing of sort of, for the first time, beginning to feel at home on earth, but actually the tremendous sadness at the loss of the connection with the spiritual world. And what I feel so strongly about that music we just listened to, you could feel the melancholy, couldn't you? But it's not an individual melancholy. It's not like, you know, the sad music of our time, which is the music of my individual soul, you know. It's not that at all. It's a sort of cultural sadness. And it's so clear to me that's what it is. It's the sadness of the loss of the spiritual world. You can hear it in that music. It's just so amazing. And then all this, you know, dazzling sort of cascade of notes around the notes. That's that sort of childlike joy, you know, just like a child, a 3 to 5 year old, just having fun. So both of those things are in that music. So it kind of corroborates what Steiner's saying, and you can even hear it in the interval, you know, the goldenness and the mercurial. So what I'd like you to remember about the sixth is, that the mercurialness and the goldenness, and it's there. It's, you know, it's not an idea. You can actually experience it. So that's the sixth, and now we come to the fifth. Yes, the fifth. Well. Much more familiar. I should just say, in the same way with the sixth, that Rouland, he comes to the conclusion from looking at all the ethnomusicology that exists, that the sixth principle is behind the whole music of this era. Again, corroborating Steiner. I just check that I understand now. I mean, you can hear, there's a lot of this tradition which still lives on, and there's a lot of musicological studies about the music that we've lost and what that might have been. So it's sort of putting together all of that evidence. So let's come to the fifth. I hope you can hear that this is. It's the first interval that we've looked at, which has a kind of has a sort of seesaw kind of element. You go up, and it actually wants to come back to here. Can you feel that? So you go up, but actually it's kind of asking you to come back to there. So what you could could say is it's got a relation to the centre. So this is where we start, and we go up there. But all the time, it's keeping in mind, you're keeping in mind that. And that's fundamentally different from what we've been looking at, the sixth. You're just sort of out there. And the seventh. Also. But this one, they don't bring you back, but this brings you back. So it's got a quite different relationship to the centre than those other intervals have. And then as you get closer in, all of the others do as well. It's also very beautiful, isn't it? It's got a clarity. It's got a real clearness about it. One of my favourite quotes. He says of the fifth, with its total clarity, beauty, and naive devotion, one finds the protective and yet chastely unapproachable love of Venus. It's just a beautiful piece of writing in its own area. That's his research into that. So this is what I'm going to ask you to sing, because I'm going to sing you a piece of the Little Bit of Pentagram from a 12th century chant. So I wouldn't mind getting yourselves ready to sing. I just want you to sing this note. On maybe a hum. Let's try a hum to start with. That's good. That's good. And you're just going to keep it going. So when your breath runs out, just take another breath. Let's try now. Let's try ooh. That's good. Let's have that one. Very close lips. Okay, now just keep it going while I'm singing. Okay. to our, you could say, our individual individual selves of the earth for the first time. Something completely different from that other music. And I want to play a recording of another. You can hear this. It's very prevalent in all sorts of different folk musics. What else? Chinese music. Yeah, Chinese music is a pure thing. But I want to play a Scottish ballad, which just this was I had to explain this. This was by Père Martin, the 12th century master from Notre Dame, which of course is in the next era. But it's interesting because the early Christian church actually, they didn't progress in a way where they should have done, and sort of held back traditions from the earlier period. Just like they had this kind of theocracy going, like Egyptian pharaohs, they sort of preserved that political system as well. So it's the same with music. So in a way, you'd expect that what we've just sung to belong to an earlier period. Just avoid any confusion. Anyway, here's Jeannie Robertson singing a little bit of a beautiful Scottish folk song. You just hear exactly the same thing. So I've got to get the right song. Let's see if this works. It's in the wrong place. Sorry. We'll have to report that. And move on. Sorry about that. Haven't really got time. Yes. Yes. Well, of course. Yeah. Okay. So what Steiner says about this epoch, which is the time of the Egyptian culture, particularly. He says, this is the first time that humankind built culture around a real observation of the outside world. So they look into the stars and they see the zodiac and they construct a system of time based on what they see on the 12 zodiacal symbols. That's the first time that's happened. And I think that, that's a kind of corollary for what we've heard with the fifth, of this relationship to the self for the first time. So in the same way that the culture of the fifth based a culture on the outer, the phenomenon of the outer world. I mean, you've got agriculture there, but they weren't up here, but they weren't in touch with the seasons. It was the initiates who told them when to sow and when to harvest and all of that. So people weren't. You'd think that might have amounted to the same, but it didn't. So here we've got that connection with the physical world, and you can hear that in the fifth because it's a connection with the self. Beginning to get a connection with the individual self for the first time, and that's in music. That's the tonic note. So that's the connection there. We're going now to here, which is Greece, Rome, and the Middle Ages, and the interval of the fourth. So the pattern now is becoming very clear, I think. Yes, the fourth. So we've got the fifth, on the fifth, and the fourth, So I hope you can feel that you're really inside yourself now. The fifth. is kind of a little bit out here, and also this relationship to the self. In the fourth, you can really come into your skin. You hear that? It's a quite different feeling. It's also very wide awake and alert, and sort of, it gives you a bit of a jolt. And that's why tunes often start with it, you know. Many tunes just start with the fourth because it sort of kicks you into life. So that's the fourth. It's got a very clear quality. And interestingly, of course, this is the time when philosophy starts, Greek philosophy. So what is Greek philosophy? It's a construct of the human being. It's got nothing to do with outside there. It's as we were hearing this morning, logic. It's a Socratic dialogue is entirely a function of what's inside me, isn't it? Yeah, as John said this morning. You can hear that in that interval. It's all about what's inside me. It's about it. But not about my individual feelings. It's rather my individual thoughts. So with that in mind, let's listen to the first excerpt, which is medieval polyphony. creates a cycle. It's actually the same cycle as the fifth paragraph, but you just go around another way, so it's actually the same, it partakes of the same thing. But I don't know if you can hear that kind of, that fourth quality. One thing that's very clear about that music is that time is ordered. For the first time, dum, da, dum, da, dum, da, you've got that very clear rhythm, which goes through the whole harmony. So you've got this kind of ordering principle. And if you think of Roman law or Roman roads, it's all about ordering, isn't it? Everything has to be ordered. Or the Roman Church taking over the Celtic Church, because it's all about order. And it's just so clear. The fourth is just all about ordering everything. So there's an exact correspondence there. I want to, if I can make this work, there's a wonderful tradition of fourth music in Sardinia. It's a folk music which you can still hear. And you can just hear so clearly it's kind of the same principle, although it's a very different kind of music, because this was sacred music from Middle Age which is Europe, and this is a folk tradition from an oral tradition of harmony, which is most unusual because harmony traditions are always written down. So yeah, let's see if I can do this. Oh yeah, there we go. We're rounding up now, and the next, I mean, the Rouland's thesis can be proven without any simply by our own historical empirical evidence. The next, so now we come to the third. From Steiner gives it a very clear date. Not quite sure why, 1430, the third. I'm just going to touch on this because we're very familiar with this music. So the third, our music is a kind of mixture of the cycle of fifths with the third principle interjected into it in a way which I can't describe. It's a mixture between the fifth and the third. But the third is very, very strong and increasingly becomes the dominant principle. So we've got two. We've got the major third, which we're used to. Yeah, I hope you can feel without going into it that actually this is the world of our individual feelings. This is our soul life. It's so clear. The fourth is our what in anthroposophy we call our intellectual soul. It's our thinking, individual thinking capacity. The third is our individual feeling. So I'm just going to say a few aphoristic things about the third, and then wind up. I mean, there's so much fantastic stuff which is said about this era that I don't need to say much. Well, first thing is that it creates harmony. The third creates harmony. The fourth does as well, but the third really creates it. It's because it's a close interval. It's close together. So obviously you can pile thirds on top of each other much more easily than you can pile sevenths on top of each other. So you get harmony. So and harmony is the glory of European music. Rhythm and melody is pretty basic, actually, compared to other musics of the world. But harmony is a Palestrina polyphony, and that kind of sonorousness of thirds piled up on each other, glorious. You know, what it must have been like to hear that for the first time, after all this kind of, what you listen to. I mean, it must have been just absolutely mind-blowing. It's easy to take for granted nowadays. Yeah, so like I said, our European music from the Renaissance to 1900, but it's still mostly what we listen to. You know, so of course there were all sorts of revolutions in music in the 20th century going beyond the third, but still it continues. That same tradition of the fifth and the third continues in all sorts of music, not just popular music, but minimalism and all sorts. You know. So that's the music of our time. Basically, the third and the fifth combine in a myriad of different ways to produce all the different schools of music that we know, Baroque, Renaissance, classical, early romantic, and all this, and many subgroups within them. You could say it's an emancipation of the subjective element, going from the generalized sonorous warmth of the Renaissance to the revelation of the individual composer's biography. You know, where that's just one person's soul life that we're listening to. So in creating a music predominantly out of the third, the fifth as well, but predominantly out of the third, we have become citizens of the earth, but we've lost contact with the spiritual world by forgetting these higher, pure intervals. And this is the problem. This is the problem that we're now in. And many musicians throughout the 20th century have felt this. They've really felt that music has kind of reached a dead end. What's going to happen? It was a massive crisis for people who really identify themselves with music. And this is an enormous question here, because we're now stuck in a music which reflects our individual soul life, which is great in a way and it's very necessary. But there's a whole other story. How are we going to get out of it? Having said that, just especially in view of the concert tonight, I want to also say that, because I love European music, that the great masters of European music, Bach and Beethoven and the rest, they kind of somehow transcended that tradition. It was a whole lot more than simply expressing feeling, not simply, but expression of feeling. They kind of created a picture of the spiritual world, a kind of static picture in a time, that we call Kali Yuga, where humankind could not have his own access to the spiritual world. So we needed a way of being reminded of that, and that is what the great masterworks of the European musical canon actually did. So they somehow transcend what I'm saying. So it's not like, I'm not down on my tradition at all. I just want to say that, particularly in Europe, that I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful concert tonight. So that's the third. It's 5 o'clock, so if you can bear a few more minutes. I'm just going to say a few things about the future, and then I'm going to sing a song to finish with. What I want to look at is this diagram here, which is this U diagram. And so what we know is that we've come from a situation of, in Atlantis and those early spots, a situation of unconscious clairvoyance. Unconscious clairvoyance. And we know we're going towards conscious clairvoyance, a very different kind of clairvoyance. And we know that in order to get there, we've got to actually develop our individuality, our relationship to ourselves as individual beings and the earth and everything that's around, and each other, of course. And that's what this journey has been, which I've been describing. And now we're somewhere down here, we're going up there. That's the kind of general route map. And in terms of, I just want to answer this question, what's happening? What's the future of music? Well, I think the first thing is we need to become clear about the spiritual background of number in music. You know, if you can accept this stuff, once you get to see this must be true from our own experience, then you simply know that that number and the spirituality which is behind that is what music is about. And it's about a whole lot more than... But the problem is that, you know, the mainstream view is that music is a kind of enhanced drama or speech, and it's just a sort of enhanced expression of our personal feeling life. But it's not. It's a path to experience the spiritual world. That's what music is. And we've lost sight of that. And the first step towards regaining that is to understand this background. That's my first. That's why the Rouland's work is so important, in my view. It's absolutely critical. And you know, of course, it's earth-shattering. You know, for musicologists, this is absolutely anathema, because you know, for them, you know, one musical tradition is all Darwinian. You know, the idea that one musical culture can have a relation to another on a numerical basis, I just don't want to know about that. So you know, it's very difficult to accept. The second thing is in connection with this U diagram. See what's happened down here. All these intervals which we've explored, they become empty. We just take them for granted. So what we need to do now is actually fill them with substance. Fill those musical intervals, especially the pure ones, with actually real substance, so they can live again. And eurythmy is a great a tool for that, because it puts it out there spatially. We can see what's going on. But you can also hear in another sort of related thing, you can hear in a lot of contemporary music like jazz. If you think of the slight guitar sliding in you know, Jimi Hendrix and many Beatles, all sorts of music. That is it's trying to find what's between these notes. It's actually an unconscious trying to find these pure intervals again. So there's a huge wish to find these intervals again and to fill them with real substance and meaning. That's our task. So with that in mind, this man here has written a wonderful study, a piece of music. It's really just a study which contains all the pure intervals up here. In the fourth octave overtone scale. I'm just going to sing that for you. It contains all the pure intervals, and I'd just like to finish with that. It's in German. It's a very beautiful esoteric German words. But I'm not going into that. Just maybe see if you can hear the intervals.
Thank you. That's amazing. Really amazing. I'm sure people here have not thought about it in that way. I thought that when the Lord congregation started, it was too much for me. So, yeah. And the question, but maybe we'll do that in the plenary, would be, are we, just looking numerically, are we then going to the second?
Yeah, there were so many bits I couldn't cover.
Right.
It's just a stop.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I mean, hearing that, that like the changeover in the fifth, that's just, it's so clear. It's just wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we've got a plenary little time now, so if all presenters, if they could kind of come up here maybe, and just along here, we're going to have some chairs, we can just sit here and have a chat with people, see what anybody, because obviously there's things like questions, but obviously, you're a whole lot of very interesting people who've all brought your stuff as well, and whatever you have to contribute in the area of sacred mathematics and liberal arts. We've got a bit of time now that we can go into.
Well, I just want to see these thirds and fifths. I find it very interesting in relation to various Bach cubes. So there's this one. She was the scholar who did all this work on code innovation. It's an astonishing chord because it has the tones which are incorporated in between, and then the ultimate is when the chaconne is played with the tones. I mean, that's almost off the plan. I recommend this if you're interested in this sort of thing. Paul talked a lot about it. Of course, Paul had a Nestor Fellowship where he did Bach and Ribbon.
That's right.